Okay, so thank you everyone for joining today. We have a very special guest because he was in iPark. He was where you are literally, and now he's in California. He moved there because his market's there. وكثير استفاد هلا بقى هو بيقول لكم يعني how he helped. But definitely, he's a good model to kind of model your own company around. هلا he raised a round of financing. Now he's raising a bigger round. Well, he's ahead of the curve a bit, an mature market. He's kind of cutting the edges there. Very interesting. But before we get into this, I want to talk a bit about validation, what it is, what it isn't. Really, like, Amjad, you need to put your ego aside, literally, and like just pretend like you're an amateur. Pretend you know nothing. Yeah, if you come in with us, because a lot of people, like especially smart people, struggle with customer validation because smart person usually thinks and know what they think is right, or they think their assumptions are right. Or maybe they are, maybe they're not. But the thing is, no, this is the danger in customer validation. Because you're smart, you think the client is wrong. And I'm not saying the client is always right either, because it's not the case. Sometimes you get feedback that makes no sense. So part of it is, first of all, putting your I'm a smart person hat aside and thinking, you know what, this is what I think, but let's see what other people think. Okay, that's mainly it. You want to see what they think. You want to get enough people, like you want to get enough 50, 100 people giving you feedback. And when they give you feedback, it's like, okay, now I have a bit of a different idea. Maybe this assumption needs tweaking. Maybe this assumption was wrong. So going in with your assumptions, but like being flexible with them. فهيدي in a nutshell. واليوم حيحكي نور about prototyping with Figma. As nobody's ever used it, it would be a good webinar. حيفت لكم شوي when you would be ready to go into vibe coding after Figma. We took the vibe coding webinar on Thursday, so it's just sorry. Hey, this is like the step before, more or less. Who, it's it's important not to spend too much money too early. The other day there was one founder حكيت معه على جنب because he was thinking he needed to like hire a team and just spend on photography, spend. The whole point of the going lean, the lean startup methodology is to try to spend the least amount of money until you really feel you've got something that's gonna get you dollars coming in. This is the biggest point I want to make. Don't think in terms of I want to open a business like بدي افتح شوب وجيب احذيه وانفنتوري وبيع الاحذيه وانفنتوري مانجمنت وكان خبريات اكثر انه you know what, I'm thinking of doing something that isn't really in the market right now and I want to build this, but I don't want to spend too much before I know that people are probably going to pay me for it. Or how much? This is the kind of validation game you want to play and spend later. Now validate. Ooh, go be aggressive, be resourceful, knock on doors, think out of the box. You'll probably get to the point either where you think, okay, this is why nobody's been able to do it because it's practically impossible, or you know what, this is why nobody's doing it, but I have the skill set to make it work, and I'm gonna make it, and I'm gonna take a huge chunk of the market early, or even a chunk of an underserved market, and I'm gonna make a killing. So without further ado, I will leave the floor to Noor.
Well, hello everyone. It's great to be here and to give this webinar. Like Hani said, I was in your shoes. Started at the IVP program, had an idea, had no clue how to turn it into an actual product, and then went through the program. We started learning these different skills along the way, and probably one of the most important skills I had to learn was product prototyping, basically. And so I don't know, I want you to share my screen, Ahsan, so give me a second. Can you see my screen? Let
Yeah.
me know as Adrian تشوف.
Yeah,
Okay,
yes,
perfect.
yes.
Perfect. So product prototyping is one of those things where if you're starting a company, in my opinion, it's it's something you need to get your hands dirty with. يعني I was basically what Hani was describing. That person اللي إنه okay, I understand my market. It's a new market. There's like three people in the world who already know what a digital human market is. I had this ego إنه خلاص I know what's necessary, I know what's needed. Why do I need to get my hands dirty, put it out there, validate it? And then one of the iPark mentors actually, اسمه عبدو أشقر, he's one of our tech investors. So we had a deal where he's going to build my tech. But one of the conditions he put for me was you need to build the prototype yourself. لا تفهم انت what kind of tech we need to build so we and money building it. And that was one of probably the best challenges I was given, which is to have to go out there, figure out with all these new tools, whether it's vibe coding or Figma or whatever it is, how to actually create the product myself to understand how it works. So with this process, مش بس I gained so much clarity on what I'm building, but also I gained a lot of knowledge about the things I didn't know I needed to build. And it gave me confidence. لأنه when you start kind of finding these blind spots in what you're building, it really helps you kind of find the confidence to start approaching people, start approaching clients, and getting it out of your laptop basically and into the world. لأنه you feel more confident in the idea that you've spotted some of the kinks, some of the issues. You can click it, you can see it. It's evolving in real time and it feels real. It kind of starts leaving the idea realm. I know it's called idea validation program, but the validation part is by going away from the idea and into something you can actually use. And so, hey, this session, it's going to be a couple of different parts. I'm gonna give a very quick kind of presentation on how you need to think about prototyping because the way you think about it is very important. But then I'm going to hop into Figma, show you very quickly how you could put something together and potentially get a quick clickable prototype rolling that you can use to validate, change features before you hop into things like either vibe coding or fully coding your platform. I'm going to leave a bit of time in the end so we can have like a bit of conversation, some Q&A, maybe hear about what you're building and kind of نشوف مع بعض how it could be approached in terms of prototyping. So without further ado, unless anyone has any questions, I'm happy to start the presentation. إذا حدا عنده any question at any point, by the way, feel free to interrupt me. You know the drill. كنت محلكم. I don't expect people يفتحوا cameras because أنا ما قد أفتح الكاميرا بالاي في بي. But if you can, that would be great. So we can have هيك a nice conversation. So okay, this is an intro to product prototyping. And I think it's very important to define what prototyping actually means. كتير عالم بيفكروا prototyping يعني you've already like started building your tech stack and you've coded something and now you're pushing it out. But the reality is actually, in my opinion, prototyping is the opposite of that. It's testing a product before you actually build it. And it's a very good thing to do because أول شيء it provides you with speed. You're not wasting time coding or building something yet. It helps you kind of receive that validation on whether your product works or your idea of the product can actually translate into a platform or a clickable prototype. And it gives you, as a founder, clarity. لأنه we all get lost in the bigger picture. But then building that prototype means you need to turn that bigger picture into features, into ideas of what needs to go where, what's the user experience, what are we clicking, and that creates clarity. With Zero, you kind of automatically start eliminating every single vague idea that you have and move more towards practical ideas. And so there are so many benefits of a good prototype. أول benefit and the most important is it saves you time and money. And both of these things are super important. If you wanted to code a prototype yourself, and then you need to change a feature or you realize that the user flow isn't exactly what you wanted, you're going to waste so much time building it again. And so having a good prototype helps you save time. As for money, you've seen Lovable, you've had the webinar. ما بعرف if any of you have tried to use it, but if you did, try to edit something وشوفوا قد ايه quickly the cost adds up. It's so much better to have something you've already tested, validated, a clickable prototype that's gone through all the fixes before you need to start going into either tools or workflows or even hiring a team to build something that's going to cost you money because everything beyond that point is going to cost you money. And so why not understand the edits and change change the things that the gaps that you found basically in your product before you invest the money into it. And so this is super, super important. So you don't get stuck in the, I paid $5,000 to build this thing. How am I going to change it now that I know that this feature isn't what people want? Number two is it reveals blind spots. لأنه يمكن تفكروا إنه okay, my product has 6 7 pages, 8 pages, 9 pages, however many pages it has, and you're like, this page says that thing, that page says that thing. And then in between those, there's a million buttons and features and UI things that you have not thought about. That's only going to reveal itself as you open it, you start clicking, and you're like, okay. أنا لو أوصل لهاي البيج I need 4 clicks, an overlay on this page. It changes so much in how you perceive your product because you start noticing the blind spots that you don't necessarily think of when you're thinking greater idea. And finally, and this is the most important thing, is if you're not working alone, this is the best way to translate your ideas to team members. It's one thing to tell them, I want a page that shows the notifications, another page that shows about if the product itself, another like payment page. And then each person is going to imagine this in their own way, as opposed to translating the idea to the team members with a clickable prototype where everyone can click the same thing, share ideas, but we're all kind of aligned on what the platform is meant to be and how it's supposed to act. And so has anyone here heard of wireframe? حدا هيك unmute and say yes if you've heard of what a wireframe is.
Yes,
Sketching,
fully.
right?
نعم
Sorry.
ما سمعت. Yeah, go ahead.
I was saying it's only sketches and like wireframes, different than a product or a functional product.
100%. Wireframe is basically toning down all of the visual features and clickable features of your product to its bare minimum, so you understand how the product flows. And so a lot of people, including Anu, I am guilty of that as well, started their first prototype immediately by like designing the user interface, creating a very cool front end, really putting time into visualizing that product before they knew that the product flow actually works or makes sense. And the first prototype I made, which was like almost fully visual, I had to change up the flow massively and change up a lot of the features, and that depressed me. I had actually 3 4 days where I'm like, Ya Allah, I put so many like days and weeks of work into this. How am I gonna change it now and do all of this all over again? And that could easily have been avoided if I had validated with a simple wireframe before I got to that step. هلا, you can do whatever you want. You can fully design the product. It's just that you're going to be wasting time and effort into something that is going to change. I don't care how good you are, how good your idea is. Your first prototype is not going to be your product. Your first prototype is going to show you why your idea of a product is entirely flawed. And it's going to be a process of repeating this over and over and over again and sharing it with people and then trying it out yourself to reach a point where the product actually feels like a good product. And so I would always encourage انه start with a wireframe. And wireframes ماشي يعني بدكم تفكروا فيهم بطريقة انه it's just what can you click, where does it take you, what are the main features, without really focusing on okay, this image goes there, this video goes here, this our logo should look like this, these are the colors, this is the branding. All of this is super easy to plug in when you know that the user flow is not going to change. And so, what are the goals behind building a wireframe? Well, number one, it's designing the user experience, which is very different from the user interface, which you also kind of design, but not fully. The user experience is how do I go from A to B? How easy is it to perform a certain task on your platform? Is your platform pushing me to achieve the goal that I'm using it for? Number two, it helps you identify product features, which is basically a list. You can create a feature list of these are the things we need to build. If you want to hire a tech team, it can help you basically scope out what kind of budget you need because you know how many features you need. If you're building it yourself, it gives you clarity because now you know what are the different features that need to be built and coded into your platform. وfinally مثل ما قلنا for just prototyping in general, it's to identify the gaps. مثل إنه I figured that in my first prototype, I did not have a back button on any of the pages because I was thinking that damn. And then I realized when I'm using it, and oh, I can't go back to any page. I need to go to the home and then redo all of this all over again. And so this was a very small, tiny detail, but it's a very big gap in the user experience, and it really would hurt that user experience, and so it needed to be added. You're gonna find a million of these. There's gonna be a million like small buttons and tiny features that you're gonna feel like are missing from your users' flow on your product, basically. And so one of the tools I love, which I had to learn to prototype on, is Figma. Well, Figma is kind of divided into two different parts, which is one, you design, which is how is my app laid out on a screen? And number two is prototyping. How are these different screens and different buttons and different pages connected to each other? What do I click? How do I click it? Where does it take me? It basically helps you start prototyping things. And this is the last slide in the presentation. We're gonna kind of go hands-on on Figma, but this, I think, is the most important slide اللي هي testing your prototype. The whole idea of a prototype مش إنه أنا عملتها and I will validate it. It's kind of like a criminal investigating himself for his crimes. It doesn't make sense. You're not selling yourself. You're selling other people. And so you need to test your prototype. Once it's kind of at a place that you can share it, you send it to 5 to 10 people. You ask them to perform a key task. مثلا, if you're selling a product, you say, can you try and go purchase this product or the software or like renew your license? And then you have to ask them what works and what doesn't. Please listen. Don't get defensive. Like the less honest they are, or the more scared they are of like intimidating you or إنه يزعلوكن, the more trouble you're going to have with clients later on because clients are going to pay and they don't care about your feelings. And so really ask them to be honest, ask them what works and listen, let them talk, let them describe things. In this stage, your best asset is not getting defensive and saying, "إنه لا ما هيدي ما I thought of it this way and it works that way." Listen to what they're saying because everything they're saying is probably going to be multiplied by a million other people who are going to use your platform because if they felt it, someone else is going to feel it. It's not just unique to them. And so it's so important to test your prototype. And what's even more important is to keep testing your prototype because once this step is done, you go back to the drawing board, you go back to Figma, you change some features, you change some of the interactions, some of the prototyping in Figma. ومش انه خلص خلصت هون I applied what these people told me, now I send my product out and it's finished. لا, you send it out again. There might be new comments. Every time you make changes, you're not eliminating all the issues. You're kind of decreasing هذا الgap of what's missing in your platform. And you need to keep doing it and iterating. And it's never going to reach 100%. There's always going to be something to fix, but your goal is to reach at least like 85% in terms of the main basics of what you need for your platform to do its core jobs. Then بيصير في قصص حركية صغار and like this is an issue here, this is an issue there. Akid, please fix those, but at that point, you should feel like you can start turning this into the actual product and moving away from it being a prototype. حدا هون has used Figma before? Can I hear a yes, a no from all of you?
Yes.
Okay, how was your experience with it?
Basic يعني. Not too much.
Okay, I think the word basic
I
is
was able
great
to
here
build a
because
prototype and it's clickable and you know.
amazing. In my opinion, a lot of people are going to tell you Figma needs to take you to the final product. In my opinion, the basic I made the clickable prototype is the strength of Figma. And then to take it from there, there are stronger tools to use. Figma, سرعتها is in how quickly and easily and basic in a basic way can give you something that feels like a product without it needing to be a product. Hey, yes, Aisha, your hand is raised.
I wanted to share, to be honest, نحن أبدا ما استعملنا فيدباك لأنه هلا في عندك كتير tools, no code AI tools like magic
Yes.
pattern and other tools lovable that can generate بس by prompting. فعم بيساعدنا نخلق interactive prototype ونقدر نفرجي technical team وبتكون ال idea visualized أكتر إذا بدك حتى they can experience it. ف that's
Okay.
why yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna counter that point. And I did the same. And I started with I think base 44 Kano, and then I moved to Lovable, and then I came to Figma. And my product wasn't a product until I came to Figma. لأنه how do you know what you're prompting these vibe coding tools? Like how do you know what are the features you need؟ على أي أساس عم تاخدي هول decisions؟
What features?
إيه and what
It's
are the features you need and how do they interact or flow together؟
yes, you mean أنت trade-offs like how I prioritize features مثلا for the MVP? That's your question?
لا انه انت اذا رحت let's say you used Lovable and didn't use Figma قبل او didn't have a clear idea of your product. You had an idea of what kind of product you want to build, but not how it works. How do you know
Yeah,
what to tell the vibe coding tool in terms of okay,
yeah,
build this page, build that page, build these interactions?
yeah. Honestly, لأنه I understand يعني for now the concept of the product and the function of it. I know the features or the buttons that I want.
Yeah,
So I
that's
adjust the
that
prompt.
absolutely. That's what I'm saying. You don't. I was in the same position. This is what I said, what I meant لما قلت I had
Yes,
this ego of feeling like I understood my product better than others, and so I could build
yes,
it alone. If that is what you're doing, life is gonna deal you the same wake-up call like it dealt me. أنا كتير I had to take an ego hit basically, and it was the best thing ever. I had to go في 2 weeks قعدت فيهم the iPark until 1 a.m. every single day, just building my product from scratch on Figma. غير هاي الكبسة، غير هاي الانتراكشن، غير هالشي. That prototype got me a $500,000 tech deal that I built alone. That Lovable wouldn't have gotten me. And so it's super important to get your hands dirty. I think vibe coding is an amazing tool if you use it in a way where you are still designing your product, مش you're relying on it to design your product. And when I say you, I mean the collective you and the people around you and the people you're validating with. و lovable انه I had the product at some point بطل معي مصاري. People told me change this. I'm like, no, okay, if I change it, it's gonna cost me. And I was spending 50 to $100 every day pushing feature changes on Lovable. Meanwhile, if I had the prototype before, and هلا حفاجئكم, our current version was built on Lovable just based on the Figma prototype. So anyways, لما كتير اخد من وقت السession كمان, this is kind of my perspective on it. So you're gonna hear a lot of people say a lot of different things, but my experience was this. Okay, so the Figma, the whole idea is simplicity. You have this page, you can create a new page, but then I already kind of created something that I want to go into. And let's go out, let's assume this is what you're gonna get. It's gonna be a kind of empty page, untitled. There's this like weird layout. And so I'm gonna guide you through what each side means and how you can use Figma to get something going. أول شيء هون you can change your name. So let's say iPark, IVP, prototype. Um, you have شيء اسمه file, شيء اسمه assets. بالفile it shows you your pages. Basically, this is everything you're adding to your prototype. On the right عندكم design and prototype. Design is how anything looks. Prototype is how anything acts. وبالنص is where you're building. This is a quick 101 of the layout. And so the first thing you want to do is عندكم هذا التول اللي تحت. There's a thing called a frame. وهون بتسألوا حالكم, are we building for mobile or are we building for web or are we building for tablet? And based on what you're building for, you can create a frame. And so عندكم مثلا desktop when it's for your screens, MacBook Air, desktop, wireframes, TV, phone, عندكم the different iPhones, some Androids, etc. لنقول بدكم to test on an iPhone 17, you create iPhone 17. It made a frame. And this is basically your page. And this is where you're gonna start adding things. We have a few tools on what you can add and how you can add them. If you're making a wireframe, the most important tools are the shape tools and the text tool. ما حتعوزوا شيء تاني. This is all you're going to need. With the shape, you have rectangle, line, arrow, you're probably never going to use. Ellipse, وهذيك you're probably not going to use. I only use personally rectangle, line, and ellipse. So rectangle, line is L, rectangle is R, line is L, ellipse is O because it looks like a circle. You have tools where as a بتكب so shift, you can change it. If you press shift, it stays a perfect circle, same with the rectangle being a square, and you can start creating your layout. And this is a good point to say you shouldn't do things like this. I know, in my opinion, you should always look at references. And so before you start building your own product, the first thing I personally did in learning how to kind of build a clickable prototype in Figma is to recreate something that exists. Well, I'm not going to go through the whole process one. I deleted the file. I don't have it anymore, but then I can show you kind of what it looks like. And no, let's just delete all of these. I screenshotted one in my Instagram homepage. وجربت to add that screenshot and to add an image, you just like drag any image file in and it automatically turns it to an image. I took that screenshot and said it بدي أشوف إنه okay, how is it laid out? Because there are people who thought about this design. Instead of assuming you're an expert in designing your interface, look at what actual experts are doing and then try to emulate that, and it helps you learn how to think about things. وبيصير فيكم تبلشوا trace things basically انه عندكم هون انتو البار اللي هو it's for the phone battery وكل هالقصص. هون you have a text box and then you can add a text بقلبه and say username. And this is where the design panel على اليمين comes. The design panel over here lets you control color, font, size, opacity, كل هالقصص. So let's say مثلا I want it to be bold. Oh, I want it to be the font 15 مثلا. When I add username, for example, and I put it here. And then here we have icons, so maybe we can use like circles to represent those. And then if you alt drag something, you make a copy. Obviously, عم بعمل هلا كل شيء very quickly, and so it's very nothing is aligned properly. But so you want to you want to kind of be accurate to make this a learning experience. بس هلا I'm focusing on the details, which isn't how you want to start. Basically, your main goal is to see how are the main elements basically shown on the interface. One of the main elements are your profile and the different profile images. And so we can put one, drag, drag. أكيد بتظبط sizes. And then this is one of the first issues you're going to run into in building a wireframe, which is if everything is gray and things touch each other, what do I do? You just go to design and you change how gray a gray is, basically. And once that is done, you can basically click everything and just like move it and drag it to your window, which in this case, I chose iPhone 13 and 14. بتبلشوا تفهموا انه okay, so this is what a wireframe looked like probably when they were designing Instagram. And it teaches you a lot. It teaches you about hierarchy. It teaches you about maybe their thought process behind thinking about things. You might wonder, okay, what if it's something I need to scroll through? Basically, بتطولوا هاي. Oh, sorry. And then you just like copy. Let's just change these. And what this is gonna do is it's going to, when you demo it, which I'm gonna show you in a second, it's still gonna keep the iPhone ratio, but بيصير you can scroll down, basically, if you want it to be a longer page. And this is how you do scrollable pages. And there's text. And so, in my opinion, a lot of people would make a wireframe without text. I think text is important, which I'm going to show you in our own wireframe that we built in a second. بس I usually like having the main pieces of text, even if it's placeholder, يعني حتى لو content of the text isn't exactly what it is, I like having it because it helps me also visualize what is a text, what is an image, because technically these are going to be texts, not square images. And so the feeling they give is very, very different. I didn't do this one, but مثلا this is YouTube. You can see there most of the page actually is taken with an ad. In my opinion, this is horrible user experience design, but it shows you that someone here was thinking, and no, we need to put most of that kind of home page as an advertisement to maximize profits. So some intern somewhere was given the brief, we need to push ads as much as possible. And so I'd say more than 50% of the page is an ad. What you might want to do if you're monetizing with ads, this is a good reference to look at. But you probably want to ease your way. And YouTube, ما حدا في يقول إنه I don't want to use YouTube anymore. But then the considerations for your platform, if it has 3 users, they probably will jump to another platform if you're inconveniencing them. So this is kind of how you use the shape tools and how you start building a wireframe. إذا لاحظتوا على الشمال, you start seeing things in layers. It's super, 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 super important to start naming things. لأنه you're gonna have maybe tens of pages at some point. Each page has tens of elements. وما بتكون تيجة. So when you have your hierarchy, it's all your different pages with all the elements inside of them. And so you can just double click. I can call this مثلا on Instagram homepage. And then you can start مثلا naming, I don't know, this is image 01. image 02 حسب قد ايه لكم جرب. um, هلا does anyone have any idea what you should do if you have something, let's say, like the toolbar هون. This is gonna stay the same in all of the different pages. حدا في يقول لي هيك, like, just guess how you would approach something like this if it's the same in all pages?
I think we should just recreate the same toolbar in every pages so that you feel like it's the same everywhere.
Yeah, so this is what you do not want to do, because let's say you copy pasted the same tool on every page. And now suddenly you want to switch the search bar and the post bar. You're gonna have to go to every single page to change them. And this is where one of the most important tools and one of the easiest tools in Figma comes from, which is called a component. And so a component is basically, let's say I want to create a toolbar. The toolbar is going to be something like this. Let's resize it. And it's going to have, let's say, an ellipse. Let's imagine these are icons. How about if it's going to have a bunch of icons? You can grab all of this and make sure to put it outside of a frame. Don't put it inside of a frame. You can grab all of this, put it wherever you want, and then right click, and you create a component. You can name that component, let's say, اسمه toolbar. And now this could be added to any page as a component, but if you change something here, it's going to change in all of them. So I'm going to show you. This is where we go to this window called assets, and you can search for your component tool. طلعت لي هي toolbar. So I'm going to add toolbar to this page, and I'm going to add toolbar to this page. And I'm going to come here. I'm going to delete this. I just delete it from both pages. This is super important. Hey, I cannot emphasize how many days I've lost because I didn't work with components. Just having to change one clickable button in a menu that's on every page and then needing to go to every single page. And at some point I realized, and now that I know components exist, it's easier to just do it, like start over, than edit every page with the component. And so this is where you want to think of your menus, your notifications, toolbars, the kind of bar that says like in case you're on desktop, there's like the privacy policy, terms of service, blah blah blah, social media icons that would usually be at the bottom of every page. All of these common assets need to be components to help you save as much time as possible and change things in one place. And so you can put all your components in one place and then you can have multiple here and then you use them in your page. And then anything that's unique to that page, you add on the page itself. Another thing worth mentioning is make sure that when you're making a shape to make it inside the page itself, because if you make it outside or like semi outside masalan, it's not going to be part of the page. It's not going to click with it. So you need to make sure that it's entirely in the page and then you can resize it. But only you can see that it's inside the page. إذا طلعت برا like ellipse 15, you can just drag it into your page and now it's part of your page. Um, okay. So now that you've seen this, you're probably wondering, do I really have to build every single thing from scratch? And luckily for you, the answer is no. Now, I know there's something here called assets, and assets are a lifesaver. They can help you so much. So, what can you find in assets? You can find icons. Oh, sorry. Let's say that the notification. You can start, مثلا you get the notification bell. بدنا نزيده. You can have like a search bar. And so you can pick your poison. I want a search bar, not a search icon. So this is my search bar. And then I can resize that. And then you can enter that. So all of these are components that were pre-made for you. They act exactly like the component that we made home, but they're components that are pre-made. And so you can enter them and individually change the different parts of them and use them in your Figma prototype. Let's say with normal but drop down. You get this like drop down label, and then you have the design. You always have these different tools to change things like the color, the font, etc. Unfortunately, because we only have 1 hour, ما في كتير to go into details, but you can find a billion tutorials online on how to really change the design to something you want. And هون مثلا فيكم state تحطوا selected, disabled, hover, and then basically change kind of what it looks like as a clickable. Which takes us to probably, now that we've covered assets, takes us to the most important part of the Figma prototype, which is prototype. It goes without saying, obviously. And so when you move the prototype, basically window, I'm gonna make a couple of frames here just to show you how this works. I'm gonna make a desktop frame 1. I'm gonna make a quick rectangle. And then I'm gonna make another shape. So let's assume this is a button. وبدي مثلا and when I click this button, it takes me to another page, which is lots of prototype settings. Okay, one sec. I'm actually going to show you this here because I prefer the Windows prototype. So لما افتح prototype هتلاحظوا هون انه there's a billion arrows. And this is basically the things that are interacting مع بعض. So I'm going to make a new frame. And then actually I'm going to get a button from the assets. And I want this to take me to another page which says, one second. Congrats, you just built your first prototyping tool. And it's super, 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 super easy. If you go to the prototype, well, at this phase, if I'm doing prototyping, I like to hide this. يصير عندي شوية extra space. So you get more space. I go to the button. You can see these plus signs on it. Just drag this to this page. Trigger on click. Action navigate to هول حيجوا automatically. What this is telling it is when I click this button, it's going to take me to this page. And then you can test that by basically pressing play. هلا. There's something called your flow start point, which is which page is my starting point. You want to look for this thing. When you click prototype, you have this like blue icon thing called main flow. You can drag it to which page you want to start with. And so I'm just gonna drag it slowly. Oh, yeah. To this page. I'll click play. Oop, let it refresh. وهتلاحظوا اوقات the ratio is gonna be weird. Just fit the width to your screen because it takes the screen size into consideration. We have the button. بتلاحظوا and when I put the mouse on it, it gets this click thing. It took me to the page that says congrats. Every single thing about Figma prototyping follows exactly what I just did. You make things, you design them, you click buttons, they take you to new places, and you can do so much with that because خلوني أرجع من هون undo.
Also, can you show مثلا how a user could leave comments? Is that easy to show that? Well, that's
يلا I'm gonna get there. Give me a second.
sure.
So what you want to look at when you're prototyping your product is probably a page like this. At this point, probably less. This is after a lot of tweaking and fixes and changes to how people are onboarded. Um, this is more or less what it looks like, and you start building these different connections between different things that take you to new pages, and it becomes something you can click. And so, لاحظوا, I'm using components for the things that need components. لأنه what had happened before is this manage button used to take us to one place. I changed the page completely, so I needed that button to take us to a new page. I was changing the prototyping link and connection, the flow, for every single page to take me to that page. Meanwhile, making a component, you can just change the prototyping links, and it's going to change for all of them. And so you can tell it whenever I click team, it takes me to this. Whenever I click manage, it takes me to that. Whenever I click Talent Hub, it takes me to this. And you start getting a really clear idea of your product because let me put Hashira onboarding. I'm gonna put this as my main page and show you what it's gonna. And I'm showing you like literally the actual prototype that we used to build our platform. So it looked something like this. We're looking, okay, this is where we're gonna see the different talent. This is kind of a page bio we can enter. We see a kind of gallery with certain tabs, etc. And if I take you to actually what we ended up building, وين فتحته؟ هي. You can see it pretty much survived in terms of how it works because we really, really did a lot of iterations at this stage. And behind this stage, I kind of sent it to people, got their opinion, and we started making the fixes in Figma before we took it to this, which is, by the way, built on Lovable. Hello, we're gonna rebuild it later on. That's a whole other conversation. But it is built in Lovable and it's usable and it kind of survived any major changes. Looks very similar to what we had anticipated. And that's because we tested with Figma. And we have all the kind of different pages working exactly like we designed them in Figma. So let's
You
say
mean,
you're clicking.
sorry, you mean the end product is built on Lovable? Well, you mean the prototyping phase?
No, we prototyped. This is a prototype demo that we sent to clients built on Lovable. بس وفرنا كتير وقت ومصاري by following kind of what we had prototyped in Figma. And now we're rebuilding everything from Lovable as a fully functional product of its own. And so we moved from quick design prototyping on Figma to quick code prototyping on Lovable, and now we're cleaning up and fixing the code manually on our end. And so let's say, okay, we click things. We're personally happy with how it works. We want to share it. You just click the share button, basically. You can add either emails or copy a link. And oh, you can copy the prototype link as a play, so ما بيفوتوا على البورد itself. So it depends if you're collaborating with someone or if someone wants to view it. So مثلا you can say copy prototype link, and then هيدا اللينك إذا بنفتحها, the person can go in basically and test your test your platform.
No, that's
So and if you
quickly on what
yes.
you were saying. Hala, you're sending your lovable prototype to clients. So what kind of interaction do you expect sharing a prototype with clients? And Sean, what's the thinking?
مش lovable Figma I'd say at this point. What you want is this button. So بدكم تبعتوها لهم, بدكم تقولوا لهم مثلا try to do the main goal of our platform. And whenever they have thoughts or ideas, this is the comment section. They need to start giving feedback on your basically board. مثلا فينا نحط هون a comment. This does not work. مثلا it's not clickable. Oh, yeah, they publish it. This is the font is too small.
But like, Noor, have
Yes.
you started like your lovable prototype? Have you started sending it out to potential clients?
Yes, we've demoed it. Absolutely.
Well, like, what's your and what are you expecting out of sharing a prototype to people who actually are going to eventually pay you for your services or for your startup?
So نحن on our end, what we're sharing is we have two platforms. We have Impersonas for talent and Impersonas, the main platform. What we're sharing is Impersonas for talent. We're actually sending it for talent agencies and groups to see how it works. ليفهموا إنه they can basically really streamline their workflow. So we've set up Heyda. It's basically a fictional mock agency. And we show them how they can manage their talent and the digital humans of their talent, how they would receive offers and can approve it. And this becomes a simulation for them to understand a bit more. And okay, if you join us, if we sign together, a version of this is going to be made specifically for your company. Now, we're B2B2B, and so every company we onboard has their own page that we make for them, which has all their different talents, the digital humans and assets under them, what the permissions are, كل هالقصص, and then ways to manage it, ways to add their team. And so we're sending these so they can understand and okay, this is exactly what we are going to expect when we sign with this company. And so it's very important. أول شيء they give us feedback. مثلا PSG gave us really important feedback, which is currently licenses are for every individual talent. But PSG owns the image rights only if they're groups of 3 or more. And so you need to create a feature that in certain cases, like in sports team, forces people to purchase 3 or more licenses in bulk because otherwise they don't own the image rights. And so مثلا this is a feature that we wouldn't have thought of if we hadn't sent this or demoed it to the right people or to the companies that we want to partner with. And so this is why we're sending these prototypes out. That's on one hand. On the other, it's more than enough for now to kind of create a version حتى unlovable for them, and we do things on the back end, like the deal flow كل هالقصص. We can do them manually while we're building kind of the final prototype that automates all of this. So it's not about going from 0 to 100. It's about going from 0 to a point you can show clients, to a point where you can work with clients حتى لو you need to like put things together very roughly in the back end, to a point where it's an automated product. بس قبل ما توصلوا لكل هو, before you even show clients, you need to show your friends, your family, iPark companies and startups, what you're building. Let them try it and let them leave you comments. It's super, super, super important for you to send this out before you reach the lovable point. not necessarily بالأول to your potential clients بس أكتر to people who can help you kind of design the product so it's at a point where your client isn't gonna feel like they're doing you a service or building your product for you. And so let them leave comments. These comments are super important. You would there's way more buttons than you think in a platform. And you would be surprised how many buttons you forget to مثلا link with the prototype أو إنه هيدا البutton مش ماشي أو it takes you to the wrong place and we changed this page but forgot to change the button. And so these things start showing up and people are going to leave comments. Plus, it's very good for them to leave general comments on just the general user experience. إنه مثلا let's assume هنا I don't like that I need to scroll to the right to see everyone. I would rather scroll down. مثلا so this is an opinion, so it's not necessarily a feature, but no, feel free to get people's opinions also because they matter. يعني يمكن يقولوا لكم إنه I don't like that this is left to right and we need to scroll. I would rather go up to down, which we ended up actually doing in our Impersonas normal platform because it makes more sense there. And so sharing this prototype before you start paying money towards building your platform is super important because you want to get all these comments. بتشوف الكومنت بتروحوا على Figma, you fix these things, you share it again, you ask for new comments, بتروحوا على Figma, you fix, it goes back and forth until it reaches a point where it feels like, I would argue, uh نسيت. By the way, في كبسة بضل انسى شو هي that stops this from happening بس انه anyways Google it in case you have my issue which is all your buttons full this thing keeps hiding them بس انه مثلا things like انه okay I want to edit something I'll go back the back button is super important I want to edit my profile it really helps you visualize how things are going to work حتى لو هول we can't actually type in them they're all placeholders but just the fact that I can basically مثلا this is a button I had forgotten to link to anything. But say, no, just the idea that you can visualize what every button does, where it takes you, how it takes you to another place, um, is super important. I think I have 5 more minutes, so ما بدي كتير خبص حكي. I do want to take questions and hear opinions we'll see how you're planning to build your product. So maybe let's leave it there. Again, there's so much to learn بفيجما وبيوند وبالافضل وبكله هو بس انه this is I think the foundation of what you need to kind of build something very quickly and then everything else you can find online.
Yeah, and please, you have for the startups. There's a WhatsApp group with over 100 people on it. So like, share your prototypes on the group and get the feedback from the other startups. Anyway,
Absolutely and
yeah,
share with different kinds of people. يعني
yeah,
يمكن startups قبل I'm gonna take your questions بس يمكن قبل ما ياخدون يمكن startups are too مثلا tech oriented او بيفهموا already شو عم تعملوا. So also send it to family members. Maybe your aunt who has never used an app in her life. How does she, if you're building a SaaS model مثلا and you're building for scale, it's a B2C, but كنت فكروا انه okay, some of our potential clients could be not very tech oriented or tech savvy. So maybe you want to test your prototype with people who don't really know how to use a phone. Or if you're much more مثلا inclined towards businesses, you want to test your prototype with people who own businesses. So كمان يعني test with startups, but also have your audience in mind and send to people who would at least kind of fit the audience that you want to sell to because they have different experiences, different knowledge, different needs, and they're really going to help you understand how things go. Okay, so questions في روا. Go ahead.
Hi, Noor. So my question for you, I have 2 or 3 questions. When you test
Yes.
with people, you test with people, you get feedback. Do you retest with the same people after you iterated your prototype and tweaked it, or you test with another group of people?
Both. There's power in numbers, but at the same time, it's always good to see how a new person experiences your platform with its new design. So on one hand, you want to know, okay, is this the feedback you gave? Did this fix it? Is this what you were expecting from someone who has already used it?
Okay.
But you also want to know, okay, let's assume ظبطناها هلا وانتوا حبيتوها. Let's assume جيتوا from scratch now. Is this gonna do the job? And
Okay.
so diversify, test with a lot of different people, let them leave comments. كتير عالم حيقولوا
Okay.
and then they're not gonna do it. Try your best to, which is why it's always better to have a larger number of people, because if 20 people tell you yes, there's like five of them
Yep.
who are actually gonna try it and put comments. الناس ما
Sure.
كتير إلها جلد, so you really want to try to push
صح.
for as many people as possible to
And when you
leave
copy the
comments.
link and you share it with the when you copy the link and share it to users
Yeah.
في طريقة إنه for it to be a one-time thing لأنه كمان you want to protect your product. Sometimes you
ايه
might
ما هو
test with
هو
someone
فيك.
يتفاجئوا الخبرية
ما إيه when you share,
and
instead of using a link, what you can do is هون who has
إنه it
access
can
فيك تحطي
expire
only
أو
those
شيء.
invited. ما إيه exactly. Instead of
Okay.
sharing with a link بتحطي only those invited can access it, and then بتحطي their email, and then شايفة هون
Okay.
there's people who have access. I can say مثلا they can
Yeah.
only view, they can edit, or you can remove.
Mm.
And
Okay.
so this is هلا link is
And
more
the
convenient
comments
if you're
that they
sending it
put
to a
ما
bunch of people.
بيبين for other people, right? يعني كل واحد الكومنت تبعيته الكومنت section is
That's
for
a
his
very good
link.
question. That's a very good question. بتعرفي إنه I've never actually tried if someone else can see the
ما يكون
comments.
كل اليوزرز عم يشوفوا الكومنت سيكشن تبعولهم مع بعضهم
هلا هلا it's fine. And I mean, at the end of the day, you're prototyping, and so active over things at this point. It's probably gonna
نو
change من هلا
جست
لتصير.
ايه بس الفيدباك يعني انه كل حدا يحط الفيدباك تبعه on his own link بس انه ما بعرف اذا
then
it
I'd say
shows for
I'd say
everyone.
Then I'd say use like Survey Monkey or she and and
Okay.
tell them to privately maybe give you their comments. And
Yeah, good then.
I just find on هلا probably there is. I'm just saying it never was a problem for me that I needed to find if there's a solution for it.
Okay.
لأنه I don't
Okay.
mind people seeing the comments. Plus, I had two boards until you get free boards on Figma per account. I had a
Mm.
second board that's internal for the team where I test things, and a board for prototyping. لأنه كمان ما بدكم انتو you're changing things around while someone is clicking on it somewhere. تعمل refresh عندهم because that's what
Exactly.
happens. It would
صح.
refresh عندهم يتغير شيء بفكروا هن انه the whole thing is going insane. بس انتوا بتكونوا you're
Fair
working
enough.
on it. So it's always
Yeah.
good to have a copy that's what you're sharing, and then you fix stuff on another private team copy.
Okay.
That's how I do it personally. Hey Rani,
This is it for me. Thank you.
no worries.
Hi, Nour. Thank you for your presentation.
Hello,
It was
hello.
very interesting to see. My question to you is, uh, me and my co-founder, he's the technical co-founder, we find it very easy to visualize whatever we want دغري on the site. So if we're like, let's say we're like, oh, okay, how about you have buttons on top and the user interface one a certain way, we can like within a few minutes actually visualize it in code. Do you feel like
Okay.
even in our case, we would benefit from using Figma instead?
Look, it's a bit of a spectrum. There's no like, you have to use Figma and you can't visualize things in code. At the same
Yeah,
time, it's a truth by numbers thing, and the numbers speak louder than words. If someone tells you to change 10 features with code versus changing the same 10 features with Figma, it's gonna take you significantly less time to change them with Figma, even if you can do
mm,
it relatively quickly in code. And the more your platform grows, the more complicated changing code becomes. It's easy
yeah,
early on, but بعدين you're gonna have dependencies, your backend is gonna run in a certain way. It's it's trickier to build or actually adjust the code down the line, because your goal is to be able to not rebuild your code. You want to be able to adjust certain things, but not have to rebuild it. So what if someone says, oh, the entire way this feature works is not what we need. We need it to work in a completely different way. And so this is where things like Figma come in. هلا I'd say إنه إذا عم تحكوا clients, this is more in the lovable stage, لأنه then
yeah,
you can just tell
yeah,
lovable change it, and then you can take it to code. This is my personal preferred way. It's Figma, lovable, or other vibe coding. هلا cursor is I'm starting to find cursor is better than lovable, but that's a
yeah,
different conversation.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and then coding the platform itself. That being said, if you want to skip one or the other, There's nothing like there's no major dependencies in your tech stack that would be broken if you change things. You can always feel free to do that, but no. The nice thing about Figma is you can push 50 changes in an hour without feeling
Mm,
like, يا الله بدنا نعمل كل هالشغل or we're gonna have to repeat the code or do the tech stack. It's just a convenience.
yeah, makes sense.
Paul?
Paul,
Yeah. Hi, thank you for the presentation. If I my question, if I got you right, you said we need to design the frame more like for a specific device, more like from the example that you gave on an iPhone. I don't know if it was iPhone 17 or something like that. But my question is,
yes.
since your product is going to be accessed by a varied number of people using different mobile devices, so do you have to create a specific frame for each type of mobile device or let's say tablet?
No, no, this is an issue that solves itself when you start building the product in code, because in code you can tell it to adapt to the frame size with certain rules basically. For Lovable, this is why for example when I was for sorry Figma, this is why for example when I was opening this, I was always going here and pressing this fit width because technically the size that it gave me is for if I have an external monitor. And so this is the actual size. And so in my case, it's not fitting my laptop. But you can always tell them to just make sure to fit their device to experience it. Oh, sorry. Let me just refresh this. It just broke. Yeah, to make sure it fits their device while they're testing it, so it's a smoother experience. Again, the whole idea here is not finished product. It's speed, iteration. No one cares about like if something fits very well or doesn't. And then when you take it to code, where is it? When you take it to code, over here, for example, this will adapt as the size changes because now it's basically in code. It's not
Okay.
a window. And so this is something that usually comes in the next step, not in the Figma prototype.
All right. Thank you.
Right. We'll just
No
take a
worries.
last question in the chat. Is it fine to start building the backend before designing the interface and front end?
You're building the backend for a product you don't understand yet. And so there's I was watching a talk the other day at UCLA by the ex-head of product of LinkedIn, whose job was on phones are now a thing. How do we turn LinkedIn from a web app to a phone app? And he's worked with big companies, and he said something that was interesting, which is three things always need to work together, and it's like a triangle. And if any point of that triangle is missing, you are going to fail. And he said there design, product, and tech. So you can't have the tech without the design and product. The design and product you're gonna figure out with something like this. So if you're building the backend, you're doing the tech, but you're ignoring more or less the design and product features that you haven't understood yet. So if there are things you know you will have, let's say, مثلا, okay, you know you're going to have notifications. Sure, it's fine to start building that in a way that's adaptable to any version of the product that you have. But the core functionalities of the product are going to change the more you prototype and test. And I'm not saying test for a year. I'm not saying waste time. I'm saying give yourself 2 to 4 weeks of very intensive prototyping on your product, pushing it out there, getting a lot of feedback, so that 1 month that a lot of people would consider maybe they wasted in building their tech, it's going to save you many months in the future of having to potentially rebuild your tech in case the product changed. And so think of it this way. I'm plagiarizing here, but it's design, product, tech.
Okay, thank you, Noor, for the very interesting presentation. Just
My
to hit the
pleasure.
nail on the head with the whole validation thing, ultimately, you're going to go full time on your startup and you're going to quit your job. So don't do that before you really understand that people are actually going to pay you for it and that you can raise money. This is really the biggest
Absolutely.
de-risking. You hear the word de-risking, it's a buzzword nowadays, but you're going to need to quit your job. So don't do that until you figure out everything you've done here, what you're going to do in the rest of IVP. That's the big decision. Should I quit my
100%.
job and go 100%? or should I not pursue the company more or less? Anyway,
100%. I'm gonna add one thing على what you said, and it's the same as my experience. I'm imagining if I had to move to California for my company, but I came with the first prototype I had because I didn't validate it with people in Lebanon. I would have been stomped on here. يعني كنت هلا عم ببكي وعم برجع على لبنان already حجزت my ticket and then quitting this entire thing.
okay.
You're gonna need to take risks and move towards basically dedicating your time, your efforts, etc. And it needs to be for a product that people actually want, not something that you think people want. And so, with that being
Nice.
said,
Okay.
let's maybe call it a day. Thank you all for
Yeah.
joining.
Thank you, Noor.
يلا I'll see them soon I think the webinar let me know امتى الويبينار تبع الدكس
Maybe. Yeah.
سريع
We'll
yeah
book it. We'll book it before Arthur's pitching seminar. So,
amazing
okay. ماشي.
okay لحظة shameless plug follow Impersonas damn it, my marketing person is telling me to start doing this every time يلا bye
Bye.